Okay, welcome back to At the Time of the End, and this is our teaching in the book of Isaiah, chapter 24. And again, the incredible thing about Isaiah 24 is it's showing where we're at today. It's talking about where we're at today. And we've talked about this in verse 10. The city of chaos is broken down, and that city of chaos, it means the city of, it's like Las Vegas. It's never-ending something going on. It doesn't go to sleep at night. There's partying 24/7. So it's broken down, and that's true. That's what's happened. Then it says an interesting thing in the last clause, every house is shut up so that none may enter. In other words, lockdown. And so here we are, we're in lockdown. They're releasing the country, they're releasing different countries around the world, but we will find this exact same thing that China has found. And that is, they release so that people can go back to work, only to have the virus spring up again massively, and they got to lock everybody down again. I believe that the second time that they try to lock us down is going to end up in riots, and I don't think it's going to go very easily. There's a prophecy about that, believe it or not, about America and people in the streets. In other words, probably during a time of protest and rioting, and somebody walks in their midst and drops white bottles of white liquid, and it shatters and it is another plague. And the prophecy is that it'll happen in 4 cities, Los Angeles, San Francisco, Salt Lake City, Utah, and I believe Washington, D.C., or New York. And so we are right on the verge of that prophecy. And so we're watching for it. You watch with us and see if that comes true. So the next thing that we saw was fascinating, and that is that all joy turns to gloom. Verse 12, that's right. That's exactly what's happened. Verse 12, desolation is left in the city and the gate is battered to ruins. That hasn't happened yet. So we're in between this time. We're in this in-between time. Now the gate's battered to ruin. It'll be very interesting that what this is talking about is the riots that are coming. This is talking about when the people begin protesting and rioting like crazy. It's like right now, the police in, I believe it was it Minneapolis? Yeah, Minnesota. Killed a black man in their custody, unarmed black man. And a terrible video to see what happened to that poor man, and now the population has risen up in that city and cities across the country, and there is rioting, looting, violence of all kinds, burnings going on because there was no call to kill this man. I mean, the police officers knelt on his neck until he choked him to death. I mean, what's this? This is like what the Nazis used to do. It's frightening to see the police do that. That man did not deserve that. There's many ways to subdue somebody without killing them. Anyways, especially an unarmed man laying on the ground. So this desolation, it's already begun with these riots over this murder, in my opinion. And verse 13. For thus it will be in the midst of the earth among the peoples, as the shaking of an olive tree. Now, we talked about that in verse 13. Shaking literally means the striking. And it's talking about the earth being struck. The tree represents the earth. The olives represent the peoples. And it says that as the gleanings when the grape harvest is over. So they're saying that, look, there won't be very many people left by the time all of the striking is over. So the Lord is hitting the earth. We see this. Scientists have warned us. There is massive asteroids coming. They are later than what they thought because they were trying to figure out how to determine where they were at in space and when they would hit. Although we have heard of numerous asteroids hits, fireballs. I heard one early one morning, 3:45 in the morning, woke me up, got me right out of bed. And I thought I would see burning pieces falling to the ground, except it was a heavy cloud cover here in Seattle. But I heard the sharp report in the sky above our house, and then I heard crackling and booming that happened from the smaller pieces blowing up. But I couldn't see it because of the cloud cover. But this has been happening all around the world. This is going to increase greatly, and many other things. So we've seen these amazing things in this chapter, all speaking of where we're at right now. Verse 14, we've talked about this, through 16, it's talking about the rejoicing that's going on over the judgments that are hitting the earth and the peoples of the earth. We see that in Revelation chapter 18 and chapter 19. It's talking about the saints who have been martyred are rejoicing that the Lord is bringing judgments upon the earth because of the murder of the saints. And that murder is during the Great Tribulation. We haven't seen that yet. Although there are many murders against Christians today. Christians are the largest group of persecuted people in the world. The Chinese and many others, the Muslims, are killing Christians by the scores. And it's interesting, isn't it, that that and the murder of Jews, there's no outcry in the UN. Nobody's complaining. There's no outcry amongst the Democrats. There is among many Republicans, but there isn't among the Democrats, except for just a few. And I'm not claiming a political party. I'm neither party, okay? But I am God's party, and I stand for righteousness. Whoever stands for righteousness, I don't care what title you put on, I'll stand with you. The cry of joy is because the judgments are coming, and it's the judgments that are well-deserved. We talked about this already, verse 16. But I say, woe to me, alas for me. The treacherous deal treacherously, and the treacherous deal very treacherously. And we talked about this, and this is exactly what's said in Revelation chapter 18, verse 19. And when the burning of the great Babylon is seen, the merchants of the earth cry. Well, we know who this is. This is talking about America, and who has made the world rich with trade with her. As a matter of fact, because President Trump has a trade war going with China, and also we are no longer importing as much Chinese goods because of the weapon that was released on the world, the virus weapon. The Chinese economy is crashing. They're crashing badly. Trade with America means your economy will do well. If you don't have that trade, you're going to crash. And so this is speaking of us. Read Revelation chapter 18 and chapter 19 and you'll understand. Verse 17, terror and pit, snare, and snare confront you, inhabitants of the earth. We've talked about this. Terror and pit. Terror is at the sound and sights that are coming upon people. The pit is the underground shelters people will run to. The snare is the mark of the beast that awaits them when they come out. And then verse 18, then it will be in that he who flees the report of disaster. The words report of disaster are literally in the Hebrew, they are the sound of terror. The sound of terror. And so the world is going to hear a terrible sound. We've already heard this. Go on YouTube, listen to this. Go to the website strangesounds.org, and they've got many different earth changes and reports from around the world, including mainline news reports and so forth. But the earth is crying out, groaning from the sound, from the stress that it's under. It's being heard throughout the sky. It's being heard every day now. But it's going to get so loud and so intense that people will then know it's time to flee to their underground shelter. They will hear the sound of terror and they will fall into the pit, underground shelters. We see that in Isaiah chapter 2, verses 19 through 21, where they threw their money into the holes of the ground in order to have a place to flee. That's also in the book of Revelations and chapter 16, 17, chapter 16, verse 17 and onward. So I urge you to go there. They will fall into the pit. He who climbs out of the pit will be caught in the snare, the mark of the beast. And so they'll hear the sound of terror, the earth wailing. They'll see the asteroids hitting the earth. The Lord's going to have it continually hit the earth. And when they come out of the underground shelters, when it seems like we've gone through the asteroid storm and the sound of terror is calming down a little bit, all of a sudden, the authorities will be waiting. And if you want to rejoin society, you want to have money again, you have to take the mark. And that's going to be mandatory. Then it says, next clause, for the windows above are opened and the foundations of the earth shake. The windows above is space. Space has opened up, and now radiation and meteors are hitting the earth like crazy, and the foundations of the earth shake. So the earth is literally shaking on its foundations. Massive worldwide earthquakes are coming. Verse 19, the earth is broken asunder, the earth is split through, the earth is shaken violently. So we already see a gigantic crack that is starting to separate parts of East Africa. And it will literally separate and become an inland sea. There will be a new island nation there, or it will go below the ocean. The U.S. Navy and many others have drawn maps of the future United States just by what they see in geology. And the whole Mississippi River is going, the whole area in parts of those states will fall below sea level. It will become an inland sea all the way to the Great Lakes. That's not far-fetched. The Navy researchers know this, and they have produced a map. You can see that again. It's available. And so this is all backed up by science. Verse 20, the earth reels to and fro like a drunkard, and it totters like a shack. And then it goes on, it says, for its transgression is heavy upon it, and it will fall, never to rise again. So it's talking about when it falls, it's called a pole shift. Many people have predicted this for a long time. Einstein talked about it, that one day the ice mass at the North and South Poles would become so great that the Earth will start rocking to and fro till it finally falls over and the poles end up at the equators. The Earth will stop rotating for up to 3 days and then begin spinning again. And the destruction is widespread and astonishing. So this is exactly what the Bible says. The Earth will rock to and fro, fall over 90 degrees, not to get up again. Now this is very interesting because this is right out of the book of Revelation. This is called the sixth seal in the seven seals in the book of Revelations. Look there for your notes, Revelation chapter 6, verse 12 through 17, and again in chapter 11, verses 12 and 13. And this is when it happens. It's the sixth seal. And it's after the martyrs are murdered. The sixth seal happens. The Lord allows the earth to be shaken horribly, fall over when the brown dwarf star comes by us. It's actually going to pull our North Pole to it, which is going to cause the earth to rotate. And then when it passes by, the weight of the ice mass at the North and South Poles will keep the earth over permanently. And then it'll begin spinning again there. Because where the greatest mass is, it's going to go to the center of the earth, of a sphere that is spinning quickly because of centrifugal forces. So it only makes sense. But it's interesting. It makes sense, but it's right there in the Bible, and it is backed up in science. Now, there's much more to this, and we don't have time to finish this on this session. Next week, I'll go into this again. But I want to go to the book of Revelations, and I want to show you some of these things because there's some fascinating things to learn from these last few verses, and especially verse 20, when the earth falls over. Because of this statement, it says here in Isaiah, verse 20, for its transgression is heavy upon it. So how does the earth transgress the Lord? Is that what it's saying? It almost seems to say that the transgression of the earth is so heavy on it, God's judging the earth. That's not what it means. And I'll show you that in our next session. So let's remember verse 20. What is the transgression of the earth that's heavy on it? Let's read verse 21. So it will happen in that day that the Lord will punish the hosts of heaven on high and the kings of the earth on earth. Oh, that's interesting. And it relates right back to the sixth seal. The Lord will punish the hosts of heaven on high and the kings of the earth on earth. So let's see what that is saying and decipher that in light of Revelations, and we'll read that together next time. Hang on, we'll be back at the time of the end.